Hey everyone, Dawn here from Practical Spiritualism. Today we're going to take a deep dive into a topic that is near and dear to my heart, which is the topic of people pleasing. So if you have ever caught yourself bending over backwards for other people and giving it all to them and depleting yourself, then this one's for you. So, people pleasing, what is it? So at the core, it's really about seeking approval, seeking connection, seeking love, seeking respect. We often believe that we're doing the behavior out of love, but often it's because we're looking for something to fulfill us. So it tends to be actually an action that is based more out of fear than it is out of love, which is what many of us think it is at the time that we're doing it. Why do we do this? Often we're taught it. We're taught to please other people, that makes you a good person. We're praised when we do all these nice things for other people, even though it's maybe not filling us up, or worse, it's actually taking from us. Being nice and doing good things for people isn't about giving it your all of the time at the cost of yourself. It is about supporting people, loving people, giving what we can give to people. But it's not actually supposed to completely deplete us. Yeah, sometimes we give more than we really want to, and that's just part of the game. But other times, we really need to take a look and see what is driving our reasons for doing this behavior. So when I was really young, I used to be a chameleon. And I talk about this quite a bit with people because it looks like it's actually quite often for most of us. But for myself, as a child, I was constantly trying to figure out, who am I? And when I would be myself, I often felt bullied or told that I needed to change, or I was left out. So therefore, I started to change myself to fit in. The problem is when I would do this, I never actually felt a sense of connection. At some point, I'd actually often resent people for not giving anything back to the relationship, or it always needed to be about them. But that's how I started the relationship, and so that's how the relationship would continue. As I got older, I started to realize that we had a problem. So this is really what we're looking at from people pleasing, is sometimes it's even changing our whole personality. Sometimes it's just doing more than what we really have. My plate's already full, but one more person wants something from me and I have to give it, and I start splitting my attention between people so no one really feels like they're connecting to me. That's the other side of people pleasing. I have some friends that struggle with this, and that's often the complaint is, yeah, you're giving some of yourself to everybody, but nobody actually feels seen or really truly heard. They love you because you're always willing to do something, but at the same time, they don't actually feel truly connected with you when you're there because you're not 100% there. So it's not active listening. It's not active conversation. It's a split, and that doesn't really work either. That's really where we start looking at the impact on our well-being. So when I'm people pleasing, what is that doing to me? So one of the big things is it starts to make me feel drained. I feel empty and exhausted, and I have nothing left to give the people that are closest to me, such as my husband, my family, or even the inner circle of my team at work, or my clients can even start to suffer if I'm over depleting myself. Then there's just nothing left there for it. Then there's also our health. So if I'm completely depleted, my energy's down to zero, well, how can I possibly heal or stay healthy? I'm going to put my body, mind, emotions all into a state of dis-ease. And so part of this with people pleasing is really starting to realize it's important to keep ourselves at maybe not 100% all the time. It might be unrealistic at this point in our lives, but if we can at least be at 75, 80%, then we're going to have 80% of our energy to help our bodies restore and recover on a daily basis. That's why when we wake up and we still feel empty, that means we went to bed way too low and the sleep hasn't been enough to let us really recover from it. We start to lose ourselves. So like I said, I became a chameleon. And then at some point in my late 20s, I actually couldn't figure out who I was anymore. I got to a place where I'd been so many different people, like so many different kinds of music. I could dress in different ways. I could fit in with almost every group and crowd. But who was Dawn? And that became a difficult question for me to really answer. So did anybody actually love me, or did they love the illusion that I gave them? And that puts a whole nother spin on something. Because if that's an illusion, then we don't actually have a relationship. And everything I had built up until that point started to tumble down. And I had to really take a look as who is Dawn? And as I figured her out and started to fall in love with her, then I was finally able to start cultivating really healthy, true, connected relationships. So part of this is, how do we break the cycle? And that was a hard one for me as I got into this. So breaking the cycle, it begins first with self-awareness. The moment that I started to be aware that I didn't actually like a lot of things that I wouldn't have said I pretended to like them, but I would have said I was fine with them. I didn't really know whether or not I liked them or not. They just simply were. And that's fine. It makes it easy for me to adjust and shift and not really be triggered or overly opinionated and judgmental about a lot of things. However, it's not what I like. And the illusion is given that that's there, even to myself. So even I started to not know who's Dawn. I lost her. So that's part of it. And when we're doing this, we also start to create those, like I said, those triggers where when I lose myself, I started to become more and more triggered. If somebody wanted me to do something, they had no idea I didn't like it. And it was like, well, you never asked me what I want to do. Well, I thought they were in their own way because that's what I'd alluded to. So as we lose ourselves, then we start to have issues because instead of creating connection, we're creating attachments. Instead of creating healthy communication or conversation, we're starting to have triggers. And the issue with triggers is triggers are a way for us to be manipulated. Think about that. Every one of your triggers is a way that you can be manipulated. Easily offended, easily manipulated. And people pleasing leads us down that path. So understanding our triggers is part of it. So if one of my triggers is being abandoned or being rejected, I had low self-esteem, I was insecure as a child, bullied as a little kid. So as I got older, I kept trying to get, connection, even acceptance. So those were a trigger for me, was the opposing, being rejected, being bullied. So those triggers were things that I would use people pleasing to not have set off. So now we talk about our boundaries, because boundaries become part of how we correct the process. And boundaries were a tough one for me. So boundaries are essential for maintaining our energy and our integrity. Boundaries are about respect and they're about relationships. So they're the opposite of people pleasing. So if we've got self-respect and then we communicate them, cultivating the relationship, then we're actually having respect for the people that we're with. So boundaries are really important for building healthy connection and healthy relationships with ourselves and the people around us. So that becomes a really important piece to this. We want to start small. So often when we get into this, we want to jump into the big waters, and it's really important that we really start small. Where can we say no? Where can we say no and hold our ground and feel safe doing it? So it's like building up a muscle. Can I say no at a grocery store? It's my favorite one to give people when they're just starting to come through this. I want you to go to the grocery store, every store, and when they ask you if you'd like a bag, I want you to smile, look them in the eye and say, no. Complete sentence. And wait. And most people will be uncomfortable. People might chuckle and laugh. You can say no is a complete sentence. My coach made me do this. But it's a great way to start conversation. And right then and there, we're rippling out a different type of energy. We're rippling out and impacting the world in a better way. We're telling people it's okay. It's safe to say no. We don't need to justify ourselves. It is okay. So we start small. And then we start to build that to our really close community. That does not mean the relationships that should be close. So it might not be safe to say no to your parents. It might not feel like it's safe to say no to certain people that are considered in your inner circle, but I actually mean your safe people. So that might be a coworker, it might be a friend, where you talk and have communication about this. And in those communications, you're going to find a lot of us have these people-pleasing tendencies, and they're going to be like, I do that too. And in that conversation, we create a different wave. We create a whole different environment, a whole different community. And if it's safe for you to have a boundary, what you're teaching them is it's safe for them to have a boundary. Especially once we start talking about boundaries from the place of respect and the place from relationship, because that's something that we all want. So let's go into the power of no and dig even deeper. So again, self-respect, full sentence, totally acceptable. So why do so many of us feel guilty when we say it? Often it's because we don't know how the other person's going to respond. Or we think that when we say yes, it's a form of saying I love you. But it's not. I don't love you or any of the people in my life because of how they look, what they do for me, how they talk, any of it. I love them because they exist. I'm here and doing this because I love you. I love this world. I love us as a species. I love us. I love you because you exist. That's it. Full stop. Just like the no. And so if you're being asked to do something and it doesn't actually serve you, then that's the time for us to make the change. Take the pause. Take the breath. And then answer the question. And you might need to give a little more than a full no. Hey, can you help me with this? Yeah, I'm sorry, I really can't. I have this and this on my plate and I just don't have any more bandwidth on me. Or I have this and this on my plate and I just don't have the time. So maybe for certain relationships, we do want to give the justification. We do want to explain because that's part of the connection and communication. Other people, it's okay to just say no. Full stop. Just say no. And we need to remember that no, especially for chronic people pleasing, is not a way of us being selfish. So if we have narcissists, people that have their own issues, traumas, and dramas in their life, they make us try and feel selfish for saying no, for not doing more things for them, especially if they're a user. In that case, we need to hold our ground a little more and remember that no is not a way of being selfish. It's a way of having self-respect. Their inability to accept our answer is very different from our answer not being correct. You are worthy. You're not being selfish. You are being self-honoring. So let's switch that language. And it's another piece of how we can do this. Boundaries are about creating those relationships. Nobody has to accept our boundaries. They're not commands, they're not demands. I've talked about this before. They're not even requests. They're simply, here's my line. Here's my answer. When that happens, I'm going to do this. And saying no and honoring my energetic lines. When my energy is being depleted, I'm going to say no. That's a boundary. We just communicate it in a non-passive aggressive way. So we take the breath so we can stay grounded, rooted, and settled and not become triggered with it. Then we can have those better relationships with somebody. Now let's talk about authenticity, because this is part of the people pleasing. And we need to figure out who we are. So for myself, I had to sort out who is Dawn. People pleasing often leads us to hide, to become more invisible. I used to refer to myself as the wallflower. I could be in a room of hundreds of people and no one would notice me. I would just people watch. No one would even notice, which became a whole nother problem of invisibility and feeling completely disconnected from this world. How do we become authentic? So we become who others want us to be rather than who we really are. That's part of the people pleasing. So in my second marriage, I've been married twice, I have 2 husbands. My first husband was a sociopath and not a good guy. And my second husband was a good guy that had no idea really who he was marrying. I was better than I had been, but now I had abuse in my background, not only from there, but from my childhood, that had taught me that it wasn't always safe to be myself. And so because I learned that behavior, so we start off the chameleon, then it progresses, then we mold, and somebody can manipulate us and change us and we'll become who they want us to become. Now we have an abusive situation that comes into play. Not always, but in my case it did. I was married at 18. We get a severely abusive situation. 2 years in, I finally escaped, went into hiding, and then come back. And I want a family. I'm still in love with being in love. I have a big heart, and this is what I've always dreamed of, is having my own family. So, end up marrying my second husband. We have a son, everything's great. It's not actually great because I'm not even myself. I don't know who she is anymore. I've lost her. And the marriage starts to dissolve. A few years goes by, we're going through the divorce process. And he is talking to me about it, and he said, I know this is my fault. And I'm like, no, it's not. You think that you love me, but you can't because you don't even know who I am. I've only been figuring her out over the last year. And so it wasn't until really I'd hit 31 that I started to figure out who is Dawn, and then started that process of falling in love with her. And that became a really important part. I had to realize I was the only person that actually needed to respect me. Everything I was seeking from other people when I was trying to please were the exact things I was not giving myself. I wasn't giving myself respect. I wasn't honoring myself. I wasn't loving myself. Hell, most of the time I didn't even really like myself. So how could I do any of those other things? And that's part of it. We need to understand, what are we doing? So we take the breath and we take the pause. And if I'm about to say yes, the first question is, why am I going to say yes? And if that yes isn't because I really want to, my heart's wide open, I want to give them a hand, then the answer is probably no. Because a maybe is no, if we really take a look at it. So if we could pause, we'd have a lot less issues with people, because often the problem's not that we say no, it's the wishy-washy or the sense of energetic resentment that gets brought in underneath that causes more of our problems. The truth is, though, that the world needs our authenticity. So think about this, 31 years old, I'm just figuring out who I am. I've switched careers again. I'm a single mom, and I needed to become me. And the more authentic I became, the more impact I started to have in the world. The more I started to manifest and create the community around me that I'd always dreamed of and desired. The more I started to attract the right partner for me, the partner for me that would see me, sometimes even before I saw myself. The partner that would encourage me to be and play full out, that never wanted me to play small. And the more authentic I was, the more support and love I started to get. Not only from me, but from the world around me. And that becomes the important thing with being authentic. You don't need to be everyone else. We just need to be you. I just need to be me. These are the things that we are required, or this world requires from us. Everybody else is taken. We hear that all the time. Everyone else is taken. So be you. That's what the world needs. If they didn't, you wouldn't be here. Think about that. How do we start making these shifts? A couple practical tips. 1, check in with ourselves. So before agreeing to something, we pause, we take the breath, and we ask ourselves, why am I about to give this answer? Make sure it's authentic and it's true to ourselves. 2nd, practice saying small no's. So we can do it in the grocery store. We can do small no's that don't have a lot of consequence to the people around us. It can be even small things like our time. Hey, can I give you a quick call? And it can simply be, busy right now, 30 minutes. Even if you're not, we just practice giving and a little bit more of a boundary, a little more space to not just jump and please everybody. So little no's. Surround ourselves with supportive people. A big piece of this is cultivating community that works for us. The more authentic I became, the more I stepped into my own power and started owning it, the more I started to awaken, the people that weren't right in my life, they all started to fall away. Some are still there on the outskirts, some are gone, and it's okay. Some may come back when our resonance meets again, but at the end of the day, the more I changed my frequency, the more I started to change the frequency of the people around me. So whether that was bringing in people that match that frequency, maybe it was inspiring people around me to up their frequency, just as people around me inspired me to up mine. A real friend does not love you for who you are. They hold you to a higher standard. Think about that. Anybody can like you for who you are, but can you hold me to a higher standard? I want people that raise me up, that call me to be a better version of myself. Gently, with love and with respect. Publicly calling me out never goes well for anybody. But a quiet conversation afterwards is, hey, you're vibing a little low. You seem a little judgy today. What's going on with you? And we have a heart connection, totally different place. So we start to surround ourselves with better people that are willing to gently love us and hold us to that higher standard. Self-compassion. When we do it, and this one took me a bit to get there, but when we do this, we want to have self-compassion. So when I'm struggling, when I'm vibing lower, when I'm just being a little bit bitchy or a little bit judgy, then I have to have compassion for myself. Okay, this is not the best version that you can be, but it was the best you had at this moment, so let's reset and try this again. And it's owning it. It's stepping into that power and saying, I'm sorry. And just doing better. We don't need to judge it. Shaming and blaming and judging ourselves does not make this any better. All it does is instill the negative core beliefs we had about ourselves, so we start the loop all over again. If we want to do this, we have to have compassion, be a little gentler with ourselves, and then move forward. That's the point, solution focused. And then finally, remember that sovereignty, self-sovereignty, is really about living in alignment with your truth. It's really all it is. What is my truth? And we explore it. We play with it. It's actually fun. We get curious. Who am I? What do I want? What are my deepest desires? What am I grateful for? Those are important questions that we just don't ask ourselves enough. It's about taking full responsibility of our life and our happiness. So often the people-pleasing comes because we expect the world around us to bring us happiness and joy. Happiness is an emotion, energy emotion, and it is a choice. It is not a response to the world around you. So if you want to be happy, choose to be happy. Not always easy, but once we start building up that muscle, it certainly gets a lot easier. The more you honor your needs, the more you're going to find yourself attracting the right people and opportunities in your life. And that was my experience. The more I honored myself, the more I started to create this incredible community around me. Not just my work community, but like my inner circle. They all changed. Not all. I still have a few that are old friends, and we've been together for over 35 years. But a lot of my friends changed over the last 10 years. And they became really tight. People I could count on and call in at any moment. And I knew that if they said yes, it's because they actually meant yes, not because they were just trying to please me or say that and then renege. I could count on them. And that was the same that they would get from me. So we build this better community. As I started to awaken and realize who I am, that's when I started to attract my soulmate. And now, here we are, 16 plus years later, still going, just like we were from the beginning. And he continues to encourage me to change and to grow and to push myself every single day, knowing that we'll still remain a unit and we'll be partners. So as you move forward, I'm going to encourage you to start prioritizing yourself. You're worth this. You deserve to be part of your choices every single day. It's not about putting you first or even other people first. But when we put the universal we, what is the best for everyone, that's when we actually start moving towards a better world. It's a big leap, a big thing for us to work towards. But think about it. If we're working for the greatest good of the whole world, you're part of it. So you're not going to be left behind. We don't have to worry about that. And that becomes part of why we do this, is we think it's me or it's them. No, it's we, it's us. How do we create this change? How do we create and cultivate health in the world? We start here, and prioritizing is part of it. It's not selfish, it's necessary for your well-being and your growth. And you deserve a life that feels true to you. Free from pressure, free from pleasing other people, free from doing all the things that cost you and deplete you so that you can't show up when you actually are really needed. So I want to just thank you for spending time with me today. It's a long one. If you're ready to take the journey towards self-sovereignty and break free from people-pleasing, know that you are not alone. We are in this together. I have been there. Some days I still am. And so we just keep working through it. You are not alone. I'm here to support you every single step of the way. Remember, you are your own healer. I'm not, nor is anybody else. Most of us are just guides. We help and we shift and we give tips and tools. You're your healer. You are magic. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone that you think might need it. And don't forget, if you want to see a little more of me, please leave a comment or please follow me on social media. I have my blog on practicalspiritualism.com. All my socials are under Practical Spiritualism. On Instagram, you can also follow me under Dawn Elgin. And don't forget to subscribe for more insights and leave your comments below. I love conversation. So if there's something else you want to talk on, or if you'd like to share your experiences, either email me at dawn@practicalspiritualismco.ca or .com, or leave a comment below. I hope you have a magnificent day. I see the light in you, and it is brilliant. Stay bold, stay beautiful, stay sovereign. Brightest of blessings.